Right, let's take you to Pietermaritzburg in KwaZulu-Natal for an update on the breaking news on the side of your screen about 2 arrests in connection with a shooting at a tavern in Sweetwaters over the weekend. 4 people were killed, 8 others wounded. Linda Mnisi is our reporter on the story. Linda, 2 arrests now made. What more do we know about the people in custody?
Well, very little has been released about the people who are in custody at the moment, Begile, but police also confirming that they've been able to locate that vehicle that was used in this particular crime. I'm joined now by the Provincial Commissioner, Ndlandla Mkhwanazi. Commissioner, thank you so much for your time. You speak about these 2 arrests that have been made. I wonder then what we know about these people that have been arrested. Were they here before? Do they live in this community?
Yeah, well, they live in this community from what we know. And they were found in the same community. And we, fortunately, that the owner of this place has done a good job by making sure that he puts in CCTV cameras. At least we're able to get some footage and be able to trace those that we're suspecting to be involved in this. And we're still chasing others because they are now the only 2 that we're looking for.
So police then believe that there are more people who are involved. Do you know what the motive is?
For now, we don't know, but there's some leads that we are following that are indicating that what could be the motive. But until we're clear with that, we won't be able to make pronouncements now.
Earlier on, you spoke about how negligence is said to be the case for the tavern owner. In what way are you saying this? What way? How are you substantiating these claims?
The concern we have is that this establishment has got a gate. You enter in one gate to get into this facility. But within the same compound, you have 3 buildings. It's on the left is a body store, which is licensed to the same owner. And in front in the middle of this compound, it's the car wash, which is owned by the same person. And on the right, it's where the tavern and the restaurant is, owned by the very same person. So this person allows people to come in and buy food, whereas allowing people to come in here and entertain themselves with alcohol. So children would be walking into a restaurant to buy food, which a restaurant is right next to, a meter apart from the tavern. So there's no rules that regulates the opening and closing time of the restaurant. And there's rules that are regulating the opening and closing time of the tavern. Now, when a person walks in, and it could be walking to the tavern or walking to a shop, but is not searched. Because the person is not searched, anyone else can walk in. And the person enters the tavern with a firearm, and nobody searches that person. So when a person is inside the tavern and he starts shooting people, and nobody stops that person, and he walks out, they run out and they drive out of the facilities with the firearms, and nobody is able to stop. So which means there's no security, as is what is expected to be.
Can we expect any charges to be laid against the tavern owner?
Yeah, well, the liquor board, the CEO was here yesterday, and he was able to see himself what is the setup. So they are going to start working in terms of looking at the compliance or the failure by the owner of this place, and necessary actions will be taken thereafter.
So you're not ruling out the fact that the SAPS itself can lay charges against, can start charges against the tavern owner?
Yeah, well, I think for now, to allow people to get into the premises, that is violating a liquor license. Not much of any other blame that you can give to the owner. Therefore, we need liquor board. That's why I called them to come in yesterday, so they come and look at themselves, the situation, and they'll be able to tell us whether is he still eligible to keep his license or not.
Yesterday, we saw in the afternoon police officers arriving once again to cordon off the area, and hence earlier I asked you about the integrity of this crime scene. Are you suspecting that there perhaps could have been evidence that was not picked up earlier before yesterday afternoon? Was there tampering of the scene? I'm going to ask you again.
No, look, it wasn't, because when the police came in and took control of the crime scene and everyone left the crime scene, and the police were able to process it. I came here myself yesterday afternoon, and the whole place was secured. There was nobody that was moving into the place. So there was no tampering of it.
But earlier there were people who were entering the tavern. Journalists were also allowed to go into the tavern itself.
The only time when the tavern, when people are allowed to go into a tavern now is after the incident. The tavern has been closed. The owner did not open it. The only thing that is open is a body store next door. But the tavern, since the time of the incident, it has been under the police control until the police finish their work. So once the police done with the processing crime scene, then they leave the tavern. So the owner then has got the right to walk in and out of the tavern because we're done with our work as police. We can't keep it forever closed.
I'm saying this, Commissioner, because the police were still on scene. There was, of course, the tavern being opened, and, of course, journalists and other people were allowed to go into the tavern.
So the incident happened at 8:30 in the evening. Now, the journalists arrived there yesterday during the day. So the police had the whole night and the whole morning to process the crime scene. So by the time the journalists arrived here, the police were done with their crime scene.
I want to thank you so much for your time. Dazam Khonas, he's the Provincial Commissioner here in KwaZulu-Natal, Pietermaritzburg, speaking to us about, of course, this particular crime scene, saying that, of course, more arrests are imminent, and that assuring us really that there wasn't any tampering of the scene. He says that all the evidence that was needed was collected. Most importantly, he's raising the issue of negligence that came from the tavern owner, and because he continued to operate, you would have seen yesterday there were people who were still coming in really to purchase alcohol, to sit on the side, inside the premises, in fact, even outside the premises of this tavern, consuming alcohol. So that is seen as a violation of the liquor license, and of course the liquor authority. We were able to speak to them yesterday, and they were saying that based on their evidence collection and their assessment, the owner had the license. And another thing, or another step that they would now be taking, would be that of assessing the issue around security and whether everything was of standard, raised now by the Provincial Commissioner as a concern that while the taverns, in fact, this one is the one where the incident took place, but there's another one behind my colleague Ulungelo there. He says there is, of course, these shops that sell food, and people can enter. There is a liquor license that's regulating, of course, the closure of the taverns, but for the food shops, there isn't any of that. So the people that are coming to the food shops may not necessarily be searched, which really, for the police, speaks to issues of negligence. They cannot rule out at this point if there will be charges laid against him, but they're expecting, of course, that report from the liquor board in terms of what exactly he has contravened.
Quick final one, Linda. Any more news on the 8 injured, wounded people? How they're doing? Any of them discharged from hospital yet?
At this particular moment, Tembekile, what we know is that, those are still in hospital. In fact, I want us to move and show you the acting MEC for Community Safety, Transport and Liaison, who has been speaking about many of the issues here relating, of course, to the shooting itself and the social issues that plague this community. There hasn't been any update really on the issue around the people who are in hospital. Earlier in the morning when I spoke to the SAPS, they did make mention that it's still the 4 that have passed. We know that 2 of the 4 passed away here at the tavern, and then 2 passed away at the hospital. So at this point, the figures remain as they are, and there's nothing really that has changed so far.
Linda Mnisi, thank you very much for that update from Pietermaritzburg in KwaZulu-Natal.